Hi everyone, it's Carlene here from the Self Published Connection, and we are now moving to phase two of the Let's Get Published Masterclass. So stay tuned with us. Hi guys, thank you for staying with us. All right, so we're moving into phase two of the Let's Get Published Masterclass. We're now on to building your book and publishing. So in this section, we're going to focus on writing and structuring your manuscript. We're going to look at the designing your book, both interior and cover. And then we're going to look at the publishing platforms that you can utilize. So in the writing and structuring your manuscript phase, this is where you will do, you guessed it, more research, of course. So, whether you're writing as a novice or an expert in this area, then you would still need to do research to ensure that the information that you are portraying or you're giving to others is accurate and is not misleading, right? So if you're writing from expertise, then you'd have some knowledge on the matter. But of course, it's still good to do some research to ensure that all your I's are dotted and all your T's are crossed. So that the information that you're giving about places, dates, people, they are accurate. Of course, also, if you're writing a memoir, you're thinking, okay, this is my life. I'm an expert here. I don't need to do any research. But just to ensure that the places that you name or the events that you would have discussed in your writing, then it's accurate and real to life. So, say, for example, you're writing about Port Royal or, the earthquake that kind of sunk half of it. You'd ensure that the date that you're reflecting or you're speaking about is accurate to information that people can find online. And you're not just giving an idea or a ballpark of what it is, quoting incorrect dates when the information is readily available online. So you're thinking along those lines. Okay, I'm doing research to ensure that my writing is tightened as best as possible so that all the information that I'm providing to my audience is accurate and they can get what they are looking for and what they need from my book. So you're writing, of course, and then you're moving into the next step, which is the editing. So this is the structuring aspect of your book. So you've written the manuscript, you have wrote all that you know, you've done your research, you've added correct dates, all of those things. But then now you're structuring it. You're going back to edit to say, okay, do I need to remove or do I need to add to this content? So this is where you're sitting down and you're reading what you have written and see where you can tighten things up, where you can make some changes and improve upon your content. So there are four phases of the editing process, which is the structural or developmental phase. You have the line editing, you have copy editing, and you also have the proofreading stage. So there's four stages that you'll go through. The structural or developmental is where you say, okay, I am moving a paragraph from here, putting it in another section to make sure that it makes sense and it flows. Or I am completely removing this chapter because it doesn't add value to the content that I already have. So that's what the structure, you're ensuring that, okay, this information is accurate and it's doing what I want it to do. Then now in the line editing, you're going in line by line to ensure that what you are saying at each line, it punches or it resonates with the audience that you're writing to. So you're saying, how can I say this better? That's what you're doing in the line editing phase. The next one is the copy editing. So here you're checking for grammar, you're checking for conciseness. This sentence that was written, can it be shortened in some way? Can I use one word to replace three words and it will mean the same thing? So this phase of copy editing where you're saying, okay, I'm choosing the best words for this sentence to ensure that it's doing what it should do without being too wordy and taking too long for persons to read, and ensure that they're understanding what you're saying. Then the next phase, the proofreading, this is now where you go through the entire manuscript after it has already been formatted, the book cover, checking that everything is in its rightful place, all I's are dotted, all T's are crossed, right? In this proofreading phase, ensuring that your manuscript is well formatted. There are no widows or orphans. There's no missing punctuation, things like that. That's what the proofreading stage does, just to check the finer details of getting your manuscript ready. So now we're moving into the next one where you're going into designing your book. So in designing your book, you're thinking, all right, what do I need to consider in the designing the book phase? Manuscript. You're saying, all right, how do I format my manuscript? You're thinking, I need to choose the right font. Whether you're going to use one font for the heading or the chapter title, and then you're using a second font for the body text. Most books have that differentiation between the heading or the title and the body text. So you may have, say, for example, a sans serif font, like you have a Tahoma or a Helvetica, or one of those fonts that's not curly. And then for the body text, now you're thinking maybe a Times New Roman, a Garamond, a Georgia Pro, those things, a Palatino, those fonts that are curly, easier on the eyes when you are reading versus these sans serif fonts, which are, more bold and not as easy on the eyes. So you're thinking, okay, I've chosen the fonts that I think will work well together. Then now you're saying, all right, I need to consider my margins. Are my margins the correct margins? Am I considering the gutter, which is the middle section of the book? When I open or when someone opens the book, will the middle section be clear enough from writing that writing is not, falling into the middle section of the book, and people can read each word clearly, and it's not an issue for them to make out what is being said because the content is falling in the middle of the book. You're also thinking about the heading. So the title is the chapter title. There's the heading now where it's at the top, headers and footers we're talking about here. So the header, you'll have your author name on one page, and then you'll also have your book title or chapter title on the adjoining page. So there's a way for you to format it so that you can have one side and on one on the other side. Sorry about that. So you can have the header, your author name on one side, and your book title on the other side. You're also thinking about page numbers. These will fall at the bottom of the page. You're thinking about, are they going to be center aligned, left aligned, right aligned? So you're looking at all of these things when you're formatting your manuscript. You're also thinking about, okay, are my chapter pages different from the rest of the body text? The chapter pages, what I mean is the book that your title falls on, is that different with the heading and the footing versus the other pages in the book. So you're considering all of those things when you are formatting your manuscript. Of course, there's a lot more that we can get into, but you can call us for a consultation and we can get through the entire process. Or maybe I need to do a training program or something where I teach persons how to get this done. Yes, we're now moving on to the book cover. And people do judge books by their covers. So you're now thinking, okay, what do I want on my cover that will be attractive, that will be clear, people will understand the genre that I'm in, resonate with what I'm talking about. You're looking at all of those things, you're checking all of those factors. Of course, in your research phase, where you're validating your idea, you should have also been looking at book covers that other authors would have put out in your genre. If you didn't do it then, you can do it now. You're looking at what other people have on the market already for book covers. You're now saying, okay, how can I allow my book cover to have this similar look without stealing what the other person has done? You're not replicating what the other people would have done, but you're trying to make something similar so that it resonates with the audience that's purchasing that book because it looks okay along the line, it makes sense. So, say for example, a romance, you're thinking maybe I need to have two persons on the cover, the two leads for the book, they will be on the cover of the book. If you're thinking horror, you probably have some scary woods or something to that effect on the cover. Of course, there's always a play that you can do with those things, but you're sticking with the genre to say this is what most persons will have on their covers. You're also thinking about the fonts that are going to be used on the book cover. So a lot of the times persons use the same fonts in the manuscript on the cover, but it doesn't always work. It really depends on whether you're writing a fiction versus a non-fiction. So if you're writing non-fiction, then it could probably pass using the same font on the cover as you do on the interior. But if you're writing non-fiction, then you may need to play with the font on the book cover, and leave the interior pages, different. Of course, you're also looking at your front page of your manuscript. It should match your book cover. So it may not have all the designs, but the layout of the title, subtitle, the author name should match the front page of your manuscript, right? It should be similar. Then you're now moving on to publishing platforms. So, publishing platforms. How many are there? There are many publishing platforms that you can choose from. Of course, the most popular ones are Amazon KDP, Ingram Spark, you have Draft to Digital, you also have Lulu Publishing, you have a number of platforms, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, Google Books, many platforms that you can utilize to get your book published. And once you have chosen a platform, then you now look at what do I need or how should my book be looking for this platform. So you're looking at which platform you're going to use to get your book published. Of course, at the SPC or Maury Publishing, we specialize in Amazon KDP. However, we do have experience with with some of the other platforms that you can get your book. Say Draft to Digital, Lulu, Ingram Spark. So we specialize in KDP, but we do offer services that would cover Draft to Digital, Ingram Spark, or Lulu Publishing. Of course, you will look at the platform that best suits you and decide, okay, will this be the best place for my book? Amazon KDP is a general. You can put basically almost all books on there. You're saying, okay, you can print it in paperback or hardcover. You can also get an ebook. People will go on Amazon, search for a book with your genre or your topic. They are able to see your book on the marketplace. Then you have a Lulu Publishing. They also have a bookstore, but it's not as widely accessed as the Amazon platform, but there are still possibilities for that. So if you have your book in Lulu, it can be showcased on their bookshelf or bookstore. So persons can go on and purchase directly there. When you look at Ingram Spark, persons are like individuals are not directly purchasing from Ingram Spark, but mostly retailers, wholesalers, bookstores, libraries. Those are the persons who are focusing on Ingram Spark publications or purchasing from Ingram Spark. And Draft the Digital, you have it's a lot like an ebook option for the most part, so you can get your books published there, but they don't necessarily have a bookstore for you to go in and um, get your book purchased, or individuals can purchase your book from there. Yes, so you're looking at all the platforms that what their options are, how can persons access them, and see which one is the best fit for you. Then, of course, if you're thinking about audiobooks, there is ACX or there's Findaway Voices. ACX is only available to those in the United States, the UK, Ireland, and Canada currently. persons in the Caribbean, you'd have to look at the alternative, which is find a way voices to get your audiobooks done. Of course, that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother session to get into to help persons with that. So here we are now at the end of section two or phase two of the Let's Get Published masterclass, where we have talked about writing and structuring your book, we have talked about designing your book interior, and we have talked about designing your book cover. Some of the things that you need to consider, research that you need to do to ensure that your book is being presented in the best possible way so you can reach your audience and you can get the sales or make the impact that you're looking for. So thank you for joining us and stay tuned for section three or phase three of the Let's Get Published masterclass, where we will be talking about sales, marketing, and what comes next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content. And if you'd like for us to discuss anything specifically, or if you have any questions from what we discussed in this video, then you can leave us a comment down below and we will respond to you. All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.